Hello and welcome to Downstream Dialogue. This is a new Stonbury podcast and I'm Jeremy Campbell and I'll be hosting these sessions exploring a range of different topics that are affecting our water sector. In particular, things like AMP8. In fact, what is AMP? What does that stand for? What does it mean? The challenges that water and wastewater companies are facing as they progress into this new AMP. The rhetorical topics that we've seen across the news and things like, for example, water performance, water capability, water shortage of the future potentially, aging infrastructure, the impacts of climate change, as well as skills and attracting new people into this amazing industry. So I'm going to be joined by quite some amazing guests. And my first guest for this particular podcast is Ian Mellor. Ian is the Chief Operating Officer, or COO, as I think we now call it, the top role at an organisation called Stonbury. Now, some of you folks listening for the first time for this podcast may not know who Stonbury are. So we are a specialist water, wastewater and environmental organisation, and we do a range of different projects and activities that help breathe new life into ageing assets in places, and we create new assets as well, whether they are new structures to support drinking water or whether they are nature-based orientated solutions to support the wastewater infrastructure of the UK. So Ian, I think firstly, massive big welcome to Downstream Dialogue. I'm so pleased to have you on the show. Maybe you can tell some of our listeners just a little bit about who you are, what you've done. You've got an amazing journey with Stonbury, and what is a COO?
Thank you for that, Jeremy, and thank you for your kind invite. To your first podcast, I believe, in this series.
It is indeed our first podcast. I should have said that, shouldn't I?
You should indeed. And yes, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing who else you've got. I understand you've got a real diverse list of people invited and planned to join you on this podcast series.
Yeah, we have been doing. We're really excited about this. I think it's really important to share our knowledge and our understanding and to be at one with the rest of the water sector on how we as a business in particular are supporting the challenges of our customers. And we're privileged to work with, I suppose, nearly every UK water and wastewater company providing a variety of services in.
Indeed so. And in terms of my role, as a Chief Operating Officer, I'm responsible for delivery of all the projects that we carry out for all the various water companies and the Environment Agency across the UK. That's everything from delivering safely, delivering on time, to budget, looking after all the commercials, making sure our clients are getting value for money. Yes, just a small role, really.
Just a little small role. How many projects a year do you probably get involved with?
We deliver around about 1,000 projects in a year. Now, they can range from just a sort of one-day cleaning inspection of an asset, right the way up to multi-million-pound projects.
Gosh, you're a big business and a big responsibility is the COO.
Indeed, but I enjoy it.
Brilliant. So maybe we can turn attention to what I think is the first topic for Downstream Dialogue on this particular episode. We've heard a lot in the news about something called AMP8. From our listeners' perspective, some people may not know what an AMP is. Perhaps we can maybe just share a little bit with the listeners. What is an AMP?
Well, an AMP is a period of time, 5 years currently, where the water companies basically plan out all of the work they need to maintain and operate their network, deliver safe drinking water to their customers, effectively deal with wastewater, protect the environment. So they have to put together a plan that needs to be approved by the regulator. Usually they'll reach agreement on that. Sometimes they
did they reach agreement this time?
Well, some did and some didn't,
Okay.
and so there are obviously some ongoing discussions with the CMA at the moment. But ultimately, that's what it is. It's a 5-year plan to invest in all of their various assets and systems to deliver for their customers.
No, as I understand, this is the biggest AMP since privatisation at some staggering £104 billion, which I really can't get my head around over that 5-year period. What do you think, Ian, are going to be the biggest challenges for our clients and for the water sector over this next 5 years?
Well, obviously, they're many and varied, but I think a couple of the biggest, I would say, storage, and I think that's across both the sort of clean water, raw water storage and wastewater storage, across the various water companies' estates. And I think aging infrastructure is going to be another big challenge.
When you talk about storage, just for our listeners, you mean distribution service reservoirs and then raw water?
Yes, raw water reservoirs, as I'm sure many people have seen in the press. There are a number of quite large projects planned in the AMP. So I think Anglian Water, for example, are planning to build a new impoundment reservoir. There's another one, I think, that sort of Thames Southern and Affinity are collaborating on, to name just a couple. But yeah, there are a lot of schemes, I believe, planned for the AMP to increase the clean water storage side of things.
Just thinking about clean water, I read somewhere that the Environment Agency has said that by 2050 we'll need another something like 5 billion litres of water a day. I mean, another staggering number. I understand we probably do about 16 or 17 billion litres a day today. So why are we going to need so much water, and how are we going to be able to deliver that water to customers?
Well, one of the big reasons why, of course, is population growth. We continue to grow as a nation. In terms of the solutions, if I had all of those solutions and can share them with you now, that would be fantastic. But I probably wouldn't be sat here.
Absolutely,
it's going to be a combination of a great many things. I think yes, we're going to need some new assets, as we've just mentioned there. But I think it's also going to be about making the most of what we've already got in terms of infrastructure.
Yeah. So you mentioned about aging infrastructure. What is Stonbury doing then to support aging infrastructure? What kind of things would you do, and how do you help your clients and customers with aging stuff?
Well, obviously there are a whole number of solutions that can be deployed. Lots of different specialist materials that can be used, but it's also thinking about the purpose of the assets as well. What they're doing at the moment, could they be repurposed to do something different? Could they be extended? As well as then applying the various systems and solutions that we can offer to effectively relife them, and extend, their life potentially for decades to come.
When you say extend that life, how do you do that? What is it you would do to extend an asset's life? Can you give our listeners an example of?
An example of that, if we were to take wastewater, it's quite aggressive. So if you have a concrete structure, over time that the cement matrix is going to be degraded. You're potentially losing cover to steel reinforcement, which then starts to corrode. So we can look to initially sort of reverse the damage in the first place by carrying out repairs, potentially applying some corrosion protection to the reinforcement, or cathodic protection perhaps to protect the steel. But then actually applying specialist coatings, things like epoxies, polyurethanes, polyureas, that actually just prevent that degradation happening all over again.
When I listen to you speak about those types of things, it makes you realise that a lot of us just take water for granted, don't we? We take wastewater pretty much for granted, but there's so much engineering, there's so much science and so much technology that goes into the kind of things that you do. How do you feel that in the future we're going to be able to attract the right kind of people into the water sector to do the kind of specialist things that you do?
Yeah, very good question, and a very big challenge for this AMP. I think for our customers and colleagues in the supply chain. It's a difficult one to get heads around. I think the key is attracting early career people coming in. How do we make this interesting? How do we make people realise how rewarding this work can be? The kind of contribution they're making to the community, to the environment. It's really important work we do, but I just wonder if people outside the industry can really see or appreciate that. And I think perhaps that's key to attracting the right people.
Yeah, maybe during this podcast series we should give a little plug to things like the Institute of Water or the British Water Quality Foundation. If for our listeners, if you don't know an awful lot about water, there's some super resources out there, isn't there, to go and look at to get a better understanding of why this is probably the greatest sector that you can come and join and get involved with.
For sure. Yeah, and some really good organisations out there. Yeah, you've named just a few there.
That's a little nod to our sponsors then, so it would be remiss of me not to again to plug Stonbury as being the number one choice for all your water, wastewater and environmental expertise and requirements. Ian, just to pick up where we left off, thinking about water quality being a major part of this AMP in terms of ensuring people have got really clean drinking water, how does Stonbury really support that driver of producing clean drinking water, or making sure the tanks that you repair and clean and maintain do that stuff?
Well, we're actually involved right from a very early stage initially. So we work with pretty much all the UK water companies, either carrying out asset inspections and providing reports themselves, or just supporting the water company's own in-house engineers and panel engineers to carry out their inspections. We then work with those clients to help develop remedial solutions depending on what we find. Hopefully we find nothing, and we can just proceed straight to a clean and disinfection and handing the asset back to the client. But where work is needed, we'll work with them, come up with a series of options and plans depending on what's needed, what's going to provide best value, get that delivered, and then get the structure back to the client.
Do we use tech as well to do inspections and repairs and stuff?
We do. A number of things. In fact, sometimes the asset doesn't even need to come out of service. So we have a number of robotic solutions that we can use to carry out those inspections. And indeed, we have some cleaning equipment, again, that we can operate remotely with the asset still in service.
So win-win for our customers then, not taking anything out of service.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that. Just to turn a corner then, so you mentioned before about green engineering and nature-based solutions. For our listeners out there, what is a nature-based solution?
Indeed. Well, yes. Well, we're moving away from clean water now. This is really about treating wastewater. And yeah, there are a number of solutions out there, alternatives to grey engineering. So a good example would be reed beds. So these are used for tertiary treatment of sort of final effluent before it returns back to the water course or to the sea. And basically, it's just a natural process for removing some of the nutrients that remain in the wastewater, things like phosphates. And it's just a really good natural way of sort of removing such nutrients before that do cause problems to our water courses. Extremely low on power requirements, if indeed they need any at all, and of course it's chemical free as well. So they're not that expensive to construct, and they're very cheap to maintain. And of course, we're increasing biodiversity at the same time. So reed beds are a good example. On a wider scale, we can look at other forms of constructed wetlands that can go over literally acres of land where it's available, carrying out a very similar job. Fantastic opportunities to increase biodiversity, as well as providing potentially storm attenuation, which again can be a problem.
So really good for the environment, good for biodiversity net gain, cheap, cost efficient, cost effective. Well, how long would a reed bed last for? Once you...
Potentially forever. They do need maintenance though. And a number of these things were constructed, and have been constructed over the decades. But I think the problem is they haven't been maintained. They've just been left. They do need annual maintenance. Every once in a while, they will need a clear out, because you do get a bit of a build up of things like heavy metals and things like that. So they do need a refresh. But with a good maintenance program, potentially they can last forever.
And we've got great skills and people inside the Stonbury business that go and do these maintenance activities.
Of course we have.
I assume you'd say that. Fantastic. I'm going to turn on just another little corner, but still on the wastewater theme. Obviously very, very topical has been pollution and spills, combined sewage overflows, storm tank capacity and stuff. Maybe again for our listeners, you could just share your experience of what does it mean when we say a pollution spill? What is that? Why does it happen?
Yes, well, they are very serious events. There is a result of aging infrastructure again. The majority of our sewerage systems are combined sewers. So in addition to, the waste that comes out of our homes and industry, when it rains, that volume hugely increases, but it's not separate. And so we just end up with volumes of some quite nasty material that our infrastructure can't deal with. So a really big part of AMP8 is going to be dealing with that. And a large part of the solution is going to be additional storage capacity. So, when it does rain heavily, rather than there just being too much sewerage to be processed through the works and basically just overflowing straight into watercourses or into the sea, it can be temporarily stored and until the conditions allow the treatment works to basically deal with what's still coming in, as well as some of that overflow, some of that extra material that it couldn't cope with.
So I suppose
when it's raining heavily.
I suppose it's a really important point, isn't it? Aging infrastructure, flash floods, climate change, all causing those problems that I think you're describing. In terms of this AMP period, there's some really stringent targets for our water clients and customers to adhere to, 30+% reduction in pollution. Your teams, do you create storm tanks as well as maintain and repair them, so you create extra capacity?
Yes, we do. As ever, you look for natural solutions first. Of course you do. What other assets perhaps not in use on the treatment works at the moment could be reused, could be repurposed for storm overflow, or to prevent storm overflow, should I say, for stormwater storage. But yes, if needs be, yeah, absolutely. We can create new storm tanks.
Well, okay, that's really, I think it's a really poignant point, this, isn't it, given that wastewater has been so prevalent in the news. So at the moment, what we've talked about is you improving water quality in AMP8, which is one of the key targets, helping to reduce pollution and spills through nature-based orientated solutions or storm tank improvement capacities. So protecting our rivers, making it really sustainable. I think I'd like to turn just another corner on this AMP, please, if I may, which takes us really full circle to conclude the very first series of Downstream Dialogue. Ian, if I may, for our listeners, the number one, the top thing that you believe Stonbury can do to support clients and customers during this AMP period?
I think relifing, maintaining, and at times repurposing existing assets.
And just to expand, repurposing would mean?
Well, it would be perhaps taking. It's taking particularly tanks, that used to serve a purpose, perhaps a potentially redundant process, that we could perhaps repurpose that tank, refurbish it, and reuse it as a storm tank, for example.
So supporting affordability for our clients, customers, putting more pound in the ground, keeping costs really trim as well. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Ian, do you know, for our first Downstream Dialogue, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate your insight. It's been marvellous. I hope all our listeners out there really enjoyed what Ian has to say. He's a long-term veteran and experienced player in the water and wastewater world, and Co and Chief Operating Officer. Ian, a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Pleasure to be here.
Super. Hopefully you'll come on the show again.
Yes, I could probably be persuaded.
I'm glad we've recorded that. A really big thank you to all our listeners who've tuned in. If you've enjoyed Downstream Dialogue, then please follow the link below to subscribe to our channel. And if you're interested in learning more about Stonbury and the services that they provide, or exploring how we can support your AMP8 journey, then feel free to reach out. My own contact details are also listed below. So we'll be back next time on Downstream Dialogue, where I'll be discussing and talking about the importance of reap beds in the environment and managing sustainably the wastewater treatment process. Well, that's it from Downstream Dialogue. Hopefully tune in next time.